Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors and Stone Creek Hound Supply. Be sure to check them out for all your hound hunting needs.
Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Welcome back to another episode of Tree Talking Time. This week, we're going to pull one out of the vault. Ran into some technical difficulties this week as we're trying to get a new episode edited and uploaded. So, kind of last ditch to make sure you guys still have something. We're going to pull one of the most downloaded episodes out of the vault for you guys to re-listen to. So, it's with Todd Coles and his Powered by Booster line of treeing feist. As always, be sure to check out treetalking.com for the latest merch. And until next week, thank you very much. Hope you enjoy.
I grew up around dogs my whole life. One of my earliest memories, and it's a funny thing. My dad wasn't much for hunting, and never had any hunting dogs. But my grandmother on his side, they was dog people.
Okay.
And my great grandfather had foxhounds and coonhounds. My grandmother's brother, he had coonhounds, and one of my earliest memories of my life is they come and got me out of bed one night. I'm talking, I was a little fella, before I was ever in kindergarten, and got me out of bed in the middle of the night, hauled me all the way out to my great grandpa's house to show me a coon that the dogs had treed in a hollow tree.
That's awesome.
And I can remember it just like it was yesterday, almost, old carbide light and all. Mm-hmm. And that may be what started it for me.
Do you remember what was going through your head at that young age?
No, I don't really remember that. I remember I thought that was cool.
Okay.
But after that, I'd go coon hunting with them. I remember one night, me and my Uncle Billy, we was here on this place hunting. I worked for the University of Arkansas on a research farm here. Okay. And we was coon hunting here one night. And once again, we'd treat another hollow tree. And this was back when coon hides was worth some money. And I climbed up in there and I shined down in the tree. It's just an old broke off snag, and you looked down in there and there was two coons looking back at it. And we didn't know how we was going to get them out, and we wasn't far from the barn. I went over to the barn, found the drawbar off an old John Deere tractor, and we beat a hole inside of that tree and got them two coons out. That was back when they was worth $30 a piece down here.
Yep.
And then of course back then that was good money. So they come home with us and got skinned. I know that's not squirrel dogs, but
no,
that's what got me started. And I got it in my head. I wanted a squirrel dog, and this was in the mid '80s.
Okay.
My ex-wife's uncle had an old crippled up black and tan, and he said, "She'll tree squirrels, take her." So my first squirrel dog was a black and tan hound, and I hunted her, and then figured out she could tree a coon, and I switched. I went to coon hunting. I several years, and then finally decided I was going to get back to the squirrel dog aspect of it, and I went and found me a pup, and a little dog called Spaz, and I started him, and it's been going ever since. I guess that was in about '95.
Okay. Well, Todd, how about we pause here, and why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
My name, I'm Todd Coles, live in Batesville, Arkansas. I've got the booster line of feist. Been breeding this particular line for about 25 years now.
Okay.
And like I say, you may have to lead me here.
That's all right. Now, one question I wanted to ask you: when you said you started coon hunting as a kid with your uncle, and what kind of hounds were you guys running?
He just grade hounds.
Okay.
The best dog he ever had, actually, he got from me. My stepdad was a dozer operator, and he bought an old dozer off a guy up here at Mountain Home, it's a couple hours north of here, and up that close to the Missouri line. And we was up there. Of course, we had to work on it to get it going, and I'd go up there and help him work on that dozer. And there's this little old red bone looking Jip running around there, just a pup. And the old boy we bought the dozer from gave her to me.
Cool.
I brought her home, let her run around. Of course, I was a kid, and wound up giving her to Uncle Billy, and she made the dangest dog. Tree coons all night, squirrels all day. And for a hound type dog, she was pretty unique. On squirrels, she wouldn't open, and if a squirrel took off running timber, she'd go with it.
Not quite the stay put dogs you see today.
No, she was a nice little dog for a hound. I wouldn't mind having a bunch of them like her running around now.
Yeah, those old ones that you can't get back, and you didn't breed, or stuff like that.
Of course, I've not been too guilty of not getting one bred that I should have. I've been fortunate enough to do that.
I heard from somebody that said the only crosses that he ever regretted making were the ones that he didn't make.
Yeah.
So he's like, good, bad, and different. He goes, you can cull dogs that don't work. He's like, the only crosses I've ever regretted are the ones I thought about, and then I decided not to do. And then he's like, later I thought about it again, and I'm like, I should have done it.
That's a very good way of putting it. I can agree with that, and I guess I do have one regret. There's a female I had 5 or 6 years ago, real nice dog, and I had a guy start pestering me about buying her, and this is the old mistake. You need to know who you're dealing with, and I didn't, and I threw a price out there that I didn't think anybody would ever pay, and I'll be done. Come and bought my dog, and I never did get to breed her.
I've been told that. I got told that early on by a guy that got me into this. He goes, "Don't ever put a price on a dog that you don't want to sell."
Yeah,
he's like, he said that's happened to him a couple times. He goes, I put a price on that dog, and I thought for sure they wouldn't, they'd walk away and they'd think it was too much. And he goes, they pull out a checkbook or they come up with cash, the day later.
Yep, that's how this went, and I knew that. I knew it as well as anybody, but like the guy told you, I didn't think they was in. But you never know. So I'll never. Well, since then I've had several try to buy different dogs, and I don't want to talk about it. That pretty much ends it. But,
out of curiosity, the dog that you did let slip away, was her name Lulu?
Yes.
Okay.
How did you know that?
I did a little homework.
I'll be done. I guess you did.
I heard you had a little dog named Lulu that you let slip away that you regretted.
Yep, that is my one regret with the dog. Now you've got me curious now.
Your son wrote up a nice article in Full Cry a couple years ago.
Okay. Full Cry.
and I, as soon as when I started talking to you about coming on, I said, I know I've seen an article about him. So I went digging through the old Full Cries.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I would, like I say, I wouldn't have thought about Full Cry. I gotta watch what that boy writes from now on. Well, I tell you, I've been very lucky. I was after selling her.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I bought her litter mate the next week, and 2 weeks later, I couldn't tell I'd been set back any.
Oh, wow.
She
You
was,
can't say that very often.
hell, yeah, you talking about funny stories. Selling her, the guy came and, of course, he wanted to go to the woods with her, and I took him. And at the time, she was the only dog I had here.
Okay.
Well, I had my old Annie dog, my last booster daughter, but she wasn't. She is past producing any pups. So, But I was fortunate. I've got several good friends around that breeds this line with me.
Yeah.
So just because I don't have something, don't mean I can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But the old boy, like I say, he was paying good money for her, and he said, He said, I'm buying your last dog. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, as long as I've had this line, I said, I've sold a lot of good dogs. I ain't went without one for very long after that. I said, I'm fixing to go buy her litter mate.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, really? And he just out and asked me. He said, what are you going to have to give for her? And which I wasn't going to lie to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
$300. Oh, his eyes bugged out. But like, yeah, I went and got her, and she just come on, done extremely well, and then got run over.
Mm.
So,
I mean, while you're set back, you weren't really set back until she got hit.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, you've got good friends, and I think that's important. I do want to talk to you about your line of dogs, but just the importance of having good people that also work with you. I think I've talked to a few people, and I think the days of having, a big kennel full of dogs and being able to breed a high number of dogs and be successful like some of the old timers are kind of over. And
yeah.
I think having people around you that are willing to work with you is imperative to have a successful breeding program anymore.
Well, it is. I mean, there's no way I would be where I'm at with my dogs without this core group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can count on them like they're family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just no way. And I'm not one to keep a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
I like, if I've got it here, I want to be able to hunt it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't keep a lot of dogs and them be productive hunting dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Not unless you're buying them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't buy dogs. I raise my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Other than going to my buddies like that if I need to. But it's very important. Like when that dog got run over, there I sat. And I've got a buddy, Randy Pounds, lives out in Mena, Arkansas. It's right out on the Oklahoma line above the Queen. And this is a testament to how much faith I've got in this blood. I called him. I told him, I said, Randy, Brownie got run over. I need you to make me a puppy. He said, what do you want me to do? And she's passed now, but he had a real nice female called Ellie Mae. She was booster bred top and bottom.
Okay.
And I said, why don't you take Ellie Mae? I said, and then they was I'd made a cross back several years before, and he came up and got 2 male pups out of it. I said, is either one of them male pups still around? He said, yeah. He said, there's one over here. So I want you to breed Ellie Mae to her. He said, okay. And I mean, I hadn't seen this dog since it left my place at Wing.
Yeah.
But I know how he was bred. And Randy went and bred Ellie Mae to him. And there was 5 pups in that litter. And the male was the last one to start treating. And he treated his first squirrel in the wild at 4 months and 5 days old.
Dang.
That's what got me my moon pie dog.
Mm-hmm.
and James Day's Bourbon dog, and the male is a dog called Toby. Nobody really knows about him.
Mm-hmm.
That boy, he don't get out, make the hunts or anything.
Yeah.
But he is one of the top 2 producing booster dogs out there right now.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, let's kind of take it back, and I'd actually like to learn a little bit more about Booster and where this line of dogs came from.
Okay. Booster was the biggest stroke of luck I could have ever had. And I mean, it was absolute luck. Well, this was, I think it was 96, 97 when I got him.
Okay, see, it's right after you got into squirrel dogs.
Yeah. I mean, just very soon after. And I was down here. There's a lady down the highway between here and town has a beauty shop, or did have. And that's where I'd go get my hair cut. And I was in there one Saturday morning getting my hair cut, and there was a guy in there with his wife. He was getting her hair done. We got to talking and got around the squirrel dogs. He said, you got squirrel dogs? And I said, yeah. And I just happened to have a litter of puppies at that time out of Spaz, my first dog.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, man, I'd like to have a pair of them. Come by. And he said, okay. He said, let me take my wife home and I'll be back by there. So he took her home, come back. He looked them over and he said, yeah, man. He said, I like those things. He said, I think I want them too. I said, okay. And I told him how much they'd be. He said, no. He said, I don't want, he said, I want to trade for them. Well, I said, I'm not much on trading dogs. Oh, I got this dog. I said, I don't want your dog. And he kept on. He said, I got a video of him out here in the truck. He said, you need to look at it. And he wouldn't quit till we got that video, come in the house, put it on the VCR. And I'll tell you, it was one fine looking little brindle dog bowed up, treed on a house cat in his backyard. And then I mean, my goodness, he looked good. I'm sitting here thinking, will he tree a squirrel? Oh, yeah, he'll tree a squirrel. Will you show me he'll tree a squirrel? Yeah, let's go to the house. Oh, it was the middle of the day. We loaded up, went over to his place, and turned him loose. And you could say he halfway treed a couple of squirrels.
Okay.
I mean, but dadgum, he was a good-looking dog. And as much drive as I've ever seen in one. I got to thinking about it. I thought, 2 pups that may or may not ever tree for one that's halfway treeing.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I may regret this. I said, but I'm going to do it. And I asked him, I said, what is he? How's he bred? Whatever. He said, I don't know. He said, I got him from Mac McClendon down in Benton or Bryant, whichever one it is down there below Little Rock. And he said, I think he's got something to do with some dog they call Streak, in which, that was when Streak was riding high.
Yeah.
Really? He said, yeah. I said, well, okay. I said, do you have his phone number? He said, yeah. He gave me his phone number. I brought old Booster home, threw him in the pen, and I called Mac McClendon. He said, yeah, I know the dog. He said, and the first thing he said after that, he said, he'll never make a dog.
Why'd he say that?
Well, I'm telling you, he was wild. Wild and crazy. You couldn't keep him you could not put that dog in a pen for 4 or 5 days in a row and turn him out and expect good things.
Okay.
He was wound that tight. But we went on talking about him, and he said, yeah, said he's straight off a streak.
Now,
he was a...
You're saying Streak, I'm guessing you're saying Smith Streak, the mountain cur.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Smith Streak. And he said, yeah, he's off the Smith Streak. I said, well, what was his mama? Oh, I don't know. I said, well, where'd you get him? He said, well, I got him out in Tennessee from a guy named Jake Parsons. I said, well, do you have his phone number? He said, yeah. So I get off the phone with him. I'm calling Jake Parsons. He said, yeah. He said, he called him Luke. He said, that's old Luke. And come to find out, his mama was a dog called Parsons Baby.
Okay.
Which at that point in time didn't tell me anything.
Mm-hmm.
But went on, and I was full cry, and Squirrel Dog Central was starting up on the internet.
Yep.
And all that, and first one thing and another, and yearbooks. I seen these River Run dogs, and man, I really liked them. And just I had never hunted with one, but I was seeing them, and I was really liking what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And through all that, I got acquainted with Tim Cosby down in Alabama. He was, after Harrington, the guy that actually started the River Run line. After he got out of the dogs, Tim was pretty much the go-to guy for River Run.
Okay.
And I got acquainted with him, and we got to talking. And they built their kennel, River Run did, on basically, well, their old male dog, River Run JD. And but they was two old females they had, River Run Jewel and River Run Ruby. And in my opinion, those two females is what made the River Run dogs. And you'll understand why. Because after visiting with Tim, I got educated on what Parsons Baby was.
Okay.
She was a litter mate to River Run Jewel and River Run Ruby.
Okay.
And so there I've got what I consider the best of the feist,
mm-hmm.
and the best of the cur dogs at that time. So I really got interested in Booster. And I started, I was hunting him, and I'll not lie, first month or so I was hunting him, I had him in my crosshairs 2 or 3 times and just had to make myself not pull the trigger. That's the wildest, craziest dog I ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But after he settled down and seen that he wasn't just going to live in a pen, he started settling in. He'd run a deer, smoke a deer, come around, you not be paying attention, slip in behind you and feel something, look down, he'd have his leg hack pinned down your leg. Just wild. And but the more I hunted him, the more he treated.
Okay.
And have any shocking collars, tracking collars, thing like that back then. If I could run him down and head him off, I'd give him a good whooping. But other than that, that's it. But he just, 3 or 4 months of hunting, he quit that. All he just straight, and just like a machine. And he would, but I still thought he was crazy because he would do things like I've never seen before. He'd tree a squirrel here, you'd kill it. He might take 5 big jumps and boom, land treed over here, and you're like, Booster, come on, let's go. We've killed this squirrel. Or you'd be standing there talking to one of your buddies, be there for 10 minutes, leaned up against a tree talking, and him come in just as hard as he could go by you to the next tree over, or sit down on his tail, just sliding and scooting up to the tree with his head thrown back. How. Booster, you crazy dog, let's go. But for some reason, one day I started looking as a squirrel.
And liar out of you.
Yeah, and the crazier it looked with him, the more apt they was one to be there. He would come near missing one, trailing it up and treating it. But that crazy stuff, you better get ready to shoot.
That's funny.
that's the type of dog he was, and how he was bred, and fast forward to now, what I've got is I've line bred him and River Run.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Conkey's Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkey's motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkey's carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
So, I mean, basically my dogs are Streak and River Run cross.
Okay.
And with the River Run, you get another curveball. The old Ruby, Jewel, and baby dogs, Arlington had a Kimmer Kerr female she was straight off of Gold Nugget and Blondie 3.
Okay.
And he was going to breed her to JD. Well, he was too little. They couldn't get together. And he had a son of JD there. And he wound up and bred her to him. And that's what produced Baby Jewel and Ruby.
And then he bred JD back to those females?
He bred JD back to those females.
Okay. So basically the River Run line is JD crossed on his granddaughters who were half Kemmer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Like I say, that's what's got us here today. I mean, there's not any one dog for everybody, I don't guess. Mm-hmm. But these are definitely for me.
One thing that I thought stood out whenever I've seen your dogs is you don't see a lot of brindle feist.
Right.
And a lot of the dogs I've seen out of your kennel are brindle.
90 to 95% of them are.
Okay. You said Booster was brindle?
Yeah, he was a brindle dog. And a lot of the River Run dogs was brindle.
Okay.
So it's basically all the colors you're going to see from me is predominantly brindle with a red or a yellow every now and then. Mm-hmm. Now, and it's kind of funny. Boss, my male that I've got here now, him and Moonpie are half brothers and sisters out of Ellie Mae. And Boss is a really, really black brindle.
Okay.
And then Moonpie is a real dark brindle too, not as dark as him. Mm-hmm. I made a cross with them last summer, and they was all brindle except one. They was one male, prettiest buttermilk pup you've ever seen in your life. Mm-hmm. And I mean that's got to be a throwback to the Kimmer dogs.
Yeah. Well, if you talk to any plot breeder and everything, that's where they'll tell you, if you've got brindle dogs, you're always going to get those buckskin colored dogs in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, now this pup, I mean, it wasn't as dark as buckskin.
Okay.
The only reason I knew it wasn't white was it had a little bit of a white place when it was born. Mm-hmm. And you could see the difference. I mean, it was buttermilk, champagne, something,
Yeah. Really
not
light.
Yeah. Not what you would expect. Mm-hmm. But it did, no one, and that's one thing I make sure of is I know the history on my dogs, and knowing that, a lot of people would have, oh my gosh, what's happened? But I didn't get too excited. That's about the wildest color I've got.
Okay.
Everything's pretty consistent, and the way I breed them, they're very consistent on making usable dogs.
Now, you say the way you breed them. What do you typically like to breed?
Well, I mean, everything I do is line breed.
Okay.
And when I say line breeding, I'm talking top and bottom on the top and bottom. Mm-hmm. very, very little stuff in these dogs are not booster bred. Through Ellie Mae, there's one line goes back to the champ dogs.
Okay.
And then the little Spaz dog, he's in the mix. But that is some extremely old George Collie breed. The old Collie's Joe Boy dog goes back to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but other than that, there's nothing else there. But
yeah,
I like a half brother, half sister cross,
mm-hmm.
grandfather, granddaughter. On the right dogs, I'm not above a father daughter cross.
Okay.
I've not done one in a long time, but I say I haven't. I kind of did. I requested it. My son Ryan's got a young male that's doing really good. That is off a father daughter cross. It wasn't Prince and Moonpie. Prince Moonpie sire, but it was Prince bred to one of his daughters.
Okay.
That was out of another litter mate to the Lulu dog. And a lot of the stuff I do, like I say, I do those type, but then I like to breed crosses also.
Okay.
Dogs out of crosses that work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Bred other dogs out of crosses that work really well. You know, and like I say, they're going to be line bred regardless.
Yeah.
Coming from it, but they tend to produce crosses that do well.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one. It's kind of in the early stages. The Toby dog, Moonpie's litter mate. I bred him to my banjo chip last year, and she had 3 pups. All 3 of them did great. So I bred her back to Toby this year,
mm-hmm.
and she had 4 pups. Which I didn't keep any of the other 3. That's why I did it this time, so I could have one. Kept a little female out of that, and she just turned 4 months old week before last, and she's already treated a squirrel on her own.
Nice.
And there's a boy. I say a boy. He's younger than me. He's got a male, and he's been killing 3 or 4 a day to that pup.
Nice.
That's the type of cross I'm looking forward to breeding in the future.
So it sounds like you like a lot of consistency instead of like the freak.
Yes. I'm not going to make a cross that I'm expecting 2/3 or more of to be worthless.
Mm-hmm.
I know it works, and you get those dogs, but I'd rather know that I'm going to turn out something that somebody's going to be happy with.
Yeah. Now, have you ever crossed your dogs outside of your line? You know,
yeah.
Somebody brings in a female, and how do they cross on outside stuff?
Seemed to do fairly well. Old Booster, it didn't matter what you bred him to. I had a guy bring what was she? She was half Catahoula and half American Bulldog.
Jeez.
And bred now, but now I'll say this: she treats squirrels, but now I would say her reproducing capabilities was pretty low.
Yeah.
Bred her to Booster. Every pup she had made squirrel dogs.
Nice.
And and I've kept his blood in this enough that I get very high percentages
mm-hmm.
of making squirrel dogs, and I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people can do it,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think you have to have booster dogs to do it.
Yeah.
I think you just need to have what you like and breed it a certain way.
Yeah.
To keep.
I saw pedigree on some of your dogs, and that's what I saw is that you, like you said, top and bottom, you keep line breeding, and you're not really making outcrosses, so
right.
You're keeping all that pretty tight.
I'm as close to an outcross right now as I'll probably ever be. I brought up the Kimmer dogs and Gold Nugget and Blondie 3.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a female here right now. Just had an ultrasound done on her last night, and she is bred. She's a full Kimmer.
Okay.
Calvin Boutte
Mhm.
down in South Louisiana that's got the Cajun squirrel dogs. She belongs to him. It's a little venture me and him's doing. And but every line in her pedigree except one goes back to Gold Nugget and Blondie 3.
Yeah.
And we've got her bred to my boss dog right now.
Okay.
Of course, this is, I expect them to do very well, but
Mhm.
it's all an experiment. But
Yeah.
that is my idea of an outcross. Instead of going to something totally off the wall out there, just dive back deeper in the pedigree.
Yeah.
And that's about as deep as you can go now. And plus that is some blood I've never added back. I'm very curious to see what it does.
Definitely.
She's a nice dog. I really like her. As tree-minded as cur dog as you'll ever see. Lots of wind and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not for sure where that's not where the wind and ability in my dogs come from.
Well, just thinking about this, Booster was basically 3/4 cur dog.
Mm-hmm.
So how big was he?
He was about 17.5 inches tall, and in good hunting weight, he'd probably weigh about 28 pounds.
Okay, so he was on the bigger side of fur feist.
Yeah, I mean he was. I actually ATFA registered him,
mm-hmm.
and then was NKC registered as a feist.
Yeah,
and he never threw big dogs.
Interesting. You would have kind of thought, especially early on, maybe that you would have had a little bit more variation in size.
You would have. I mean, I never got anything that wouldn't feist register.
Mm-hmm.
Come close. Owen Brayson down in Mississippi. That's another kind of funny story. I met him at a competition hunt up here. I had Booster with me, and he had his old East Bowley Duchess dog. She was a pure River Run dog.
Okay.
Her mother was Jewel, and her daddy was out of JD and Ruby. And she started bleeding the day of the hunt. And we'd never met before. I mean, he's from Picayune, Mississippi, down there just above New Orleans. Here I am up here. Before the day was over, he left her with me so I could breed her to Booster. We made that cross, and that turned out his East Bowley Duke dog.
Okay.
I reckon that he turned the world upside down there in Mississippi for a while. And then I wound up with a female out of the cross called Laney. And she was super nice. She wound up and died early on me.
Ooh.
And I got one litter out of her, but it was a good one.
Well, that's good.
And everything I've got except Boss. Everything I've got here except Boss is carrying that blood.
Okay.
And and that's something that I get a big kick out of. Back late 90s, early 2000s, I didn't think they could have a competition hunt without me being there. I was all of them that I could make.
I was just about to go that route. I was wondering about competition hunting.
Yeah, well, in 2001, I won the NKC World Hunt with Skittles. She was out of Booster and a 3/4 River Run dog. Wasn't long after that, my son, he got in. He wanted to play t-ball and this and that. And unbeknownst to me, when my wife signed him up, she signed me up to coach. I threw a fit at first, but I tell you what, those were some days. We went all the way through that, and football, and even into college playing baseball. And I kept some dogs around,
mm-hmm.
but I kind of faded out of sight.
Yeah.
and nobody, no, once you're out of sight, they forget about you pretty quick.
Yep.
So I was gone, and Ryan, he's grown out of college and everything now, and but I kept a handful of dogs around just because I didn't want anything else. This is what I wanted, and so I still had my line. And now that I'm back in it, and you said you've looked at a couple of my pedigrees. People look at my pedigrees. Well, I don't know any of these dogs. Yeah, I know you don't. That I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Because people's frame of mind seems to be getting is, if a dog's not plastered all over the internet, it can't be a good dog. And I still feel like there's better dogs out there that none of us will ever hear of. They some old dog under a porch somewhere. I don't care how good you got, what you got is.
Mm-hmm.
He'll clean your clock.
I'm sure there is somewhere.
But yeah, I did a lot of competition hunting back then.
Well, it seems like you broke back into it, at least with Moon Pie. I mean, I don't know if you did before that, but
Moon Pie was my first comeback.
Okay. Well, heck, she made a splash.
That's why I kept a few dogs around all those years. I think it makes a lot of people mad sometimes because, I'm not saying this in a bad way, really, because I mean there's a lot of good dogs out there.
Yeah,
they're but I'm not interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fit what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I sit back and look at what Robert Kimmer done with the Kimmer dogs, and what Jody Mullins has done with the Feist dogs, his Feist dogs. And it may never happen, but I kind of try to follow their pattern.
Yeah.
And it's what I've got is what I've got, and I'm gonna make do with it till I can't stand it. But right now, I'm pretty happy.
That's what matters.
And I say I raised my own. It surprises a lot of people. I've had people ask me before, what have you spent on dogs to get to where you're at?
That'd be hard to even calculate.
I bet it'll surprise you.
I'm just saying, over the years, all the dogs that you've had, you're not buying dogs, but
right,
maintaining dogs, and
well, I don't count maintaining dogs. I mean, I'm going to maintain dogs regardless. But no, they talking about what I've actually spent on purchasing dogs.
Oh, probably not much.
Now, I think I'm up to a grand total of about $1,200.
Yeah, let's say early on you probably spent, and that was probably pretty early.
Yeah, it was. I mean, except for the $300 I spent on that brownie dog to replace Lulu.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not the type of dog. I don't think they would do well in today's NSD hunts.
Mm-hmm.
But they tend to be pretty honest dogs.
Okay.
And when they've got that midday round that you've got to go back on, you're out there with one of them treeing machines, and circle points move you on.
Yep.
An honest dog don't stand much of a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of stay away from that stuff on that account. I don't like to walk the trees that I don't see game.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand. I respect that. I'm not a big competition hunter. I understand it. I respect people that take it seriously and that's what they want to do. And it takes a certain style of dog to win those, whether that's a squirrel hunt or a coon hunt. But I don't necessarily find those type of dogs to always be the most enjoyable. I'm not saying they can't tree game, because in order to win, you have to tree game. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
sometimes that style of dog just is not my style of.
Yeah, I know a fella. He's got a nice little feist dog. He went to one of those hunts, and it was a terrible, terrible day.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. Drew out, and his little dog treed the only squirrel that was seen that morning.
Mm-hmm.
That moved him to the midday round. Well, like I say, he's a nice little honest squirrel dog. He didn't get a bunch of circle points on that middle round and got put out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they went on that evening, and they was not a squirrel seen in the middle round.
Mm-hmm.
It was all circle. Went on back out that evening for the winter. Still not a squirrel seen.
Jeez.
That little dog treated the only squirrel seen all day and didn't play. I guess I'm backwards, but I'd think he'd be the winner.
No, I understand.
It sounds like I've got a lot of dogs. I own 8 dogs.
Okay.
That's how many?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a handful.
They sound when all of them tree in your yard at night. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
I happened to see a video of all of them treed one night. They sounded pretty good.
Yeah. You don't ever know what you're going to get into around here.
Which brings me to the point. It appears that you let your dogs run loose a lot. Is that the case?
I do.
Okay.
I do. A lot of people don't do it. They say it causes problems. I don't have that with mine. And that'll get me to another thing here in a second. My dogs, they know. Now, like a young dog, I've got a little. She stays treed around here all the time.
Okay.
I mean, just all the time. But she's a young dog.
Mm-hmm.
She'll quit doing that here before long. My older dogs, they'll be laying around here in the yard.
Yeah.
I can walk out here. I can do whatever I want to do. They won't pay no attention or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if I walk out with a gun, it's on.
Yeah.
They know what's happening then. These dogs are extremely smart.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, anybody that gets a puppy from me, within about 3 weeks or so, I'll get the first phone call. And it's the same thing every time. This is the smartest puppy we've ever had. And I mean, they're almost border collie smart.
Okay.
Moonpie, when it's her day, she is a holy terror in the woods. One competition hunt with her, she scored 1425 plus.
Ooh.
In one. We was rolling.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And this is something I've never taught her. It's just me and her know each other well enough. But like when that cast was over,
mm-hmm.
everybody leashing their dogs up and trying to drag them out of the woods, and it was a thick man where was that. I just say, Moonpie, we're done. Stay with me. And she'll walk out with me like she's on a leash. I don't care if you're 2 miles from the truck, you'll never have to say another word to her.
Dang.
Boss, she'll do it. But I mean, they're just that way. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Kemmer dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest place it comes from, and I'll say this is speculation,
mm-hmm.
because, so far back you don't know.
Yeah.
But with these river run dogs, you breed tight, sometimes you'll get some long-haired dogs.
Okay.
And when you get the long-haired dogs, they look just like small farm shepherd dogs.
Yeah.
And where these dogs originated from, see, you had Robert Kemmer, you had Carl Smith, and you had Jerry Arnson. They all lived right over in the same area in Tennessee. Well, there was another guy there, and I cannot remember his name. I want to say it was Strunk, was his last name. But he was right there in that circle with him. And, 25, 30 years ago, he wrote the column for Full Cry that was called Old Time Farm Shepherds.
Okay.
So I could very easily see that being the main source of the intelligence in these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll scare you sometimes. But anyway, what? Ask me another question. I don't know what you.
No, this is great. I really have enjoyed learning about your dogs, and honestly, looking at them, I honestly would never have guessed that Booster was 3/4 curt dog, and because Moon Pie, I mean, she looks, I don't know, 18 pounds maybe.
She's a little heavier than that.
Okay.
I think the last time I weighed her, she was like 22.
Okay. Well, she's got some leg up under her. But she's not, doesn't look real heavy. Stone Creek Hound Supply, a family-operated business, boasts over 50 years of involvement in hounds. For over 2 decades, they've been dedicated to supplying high-quality hound gear. Their reputation is founded on unparalleled quality and exceptional customer service. Crafted from U.S. source materials, Stone Creek clothing is meticulously manufactured right here in Pennsylvania. Through their commitment to excellence, many of their customers have become lifelong friends.
No, she's not. Now, Boss, he's a little on the bigger side. He's kind of like Booster was back right now. And I'm not talking about letting my dogs run loose. Boss, if I'm gone or at night, he's in the pen. I mean,
okay,
you don't know where he's going to wind up. So I keep a little closer tabs on him.
Yeah.
But there's been a couple of crosses last couple of years. I've been concerned about being too small.
Okay.
James's little bourbon dog, she's a litter mate Moon Pie. And, she's probably 15 inches tall and probably about 18 pounds.
Gotcha.
I don't want a big dog, but I kind of like to push the limit a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it don't take a big dog to tree a squirrel, but there is some advantages with coyote populations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I want something more in the mouthful for them. But I've got that little birdie dog I was talking about, stays treat all the time around here right now. She's kind of small, and she's back to the breeding aspect, how she's bred. Her mother is a dog called Sis, and Sis is out of Boss and Moon Pie's litter mate sister.
Okay.
So that's a half brother, half sister cross right there. I bred Sis back to Prince, Moon Pie's daddy. That's grandfather, granddaughter. I got a grandfather, granddaughter cross on a half brother, half sister cross.
Yep.
I believe she is the fastest dog I've ever owned.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. I hunted her a little bit last winter, and like Moon Pie's fast. And she's really fast. And you check your Garmin on her after a hunt. You hunt 2 or 3 hours, and her average speed's going to be 7.5 miles an hour or a little better. And that's pretty good. This little birdie dog, she'll push 10, and I mean just flies with her nose straight in there. I don't know how she don't run into things. She's going to be a lot of fun this winter. She may be my next competition dog.
Okay. Now,
but
do you find your dogs hunt using their ears or their eyes as well, or?
They will do it all. When things are rolling, you don't see a lot of them.
Yeah.
But and it's almost like depending on the day what they'll do. If squirrels are really out moving and thick, you'll see them at times. They'll be running down through there, and they'll just stop and listen, and then boom, gone, treed. Or then you're liable to see them, be grubbing tracks trying to tree something.
Yeah. And
then of course, winding Moon Pie, she'll actually get up and walk around on her back legs. It really just depends on the day. I mean, they're smart enough; they kind of figure out what's working that day.
Yeah.
And where the squirrels are at. you're never too old to learn something. I was hunting a hunt down in South Arkansas and had moonfowl. She didn't win that hunt because of me. They was some thick stuff, and then they was nice, pretty wood.
Yeah.
She'd go over there in that thick stuff, get treed. We'd go find the squirrel, get her. Moonfowl, we won't go this way. We go that way. Next thing you know, she'd be back over there in that thick stuff. Trade, go find it. And after it's over, I thought, well, you stupid fool. You ought to pay attention to what your dog's doing. She knows more than you do.
Yeah.
If I'd have just let her go, of course, it looked like I'd been in a tow sack full of bobcats by the end of the hunt. But it was awful thick in there. But I mean, they figure out where they need to go look for game, and they figure out how they need to treat it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you too, and this goes back to the competition hunting type thing. I'm not going to do well every hunt. These dogs, if they're squirrels to be treed, and you're going to see them,
mm-hmm.
they're tough. They are bad tough. I mean, it's going to be hard to out hustle.
Yeah.
You deal with one tree and you just stay there and see where they're at next tree. But if there's no squirrels, they're going to make 3 or 4 big rounds, and then they're going to come back and say, look at you like,
yep,
fool, we don't need to be here. And that's, that ain't for everybody, but that's one that I like that. I would much rather have that is to walk to 15 or 20 trees and to a dog just out there treeing when you know you're not going to see anything.
Yeah. Now, how far out do your dogs typically hunt?
It varies. Like Moonpie, she's normally a 200 to 300 yard dog. She will bump it on out a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Banjo and this little wild birdie dog, which Banjo's getting better, but it ain't nothing to have to beat them back your direction at 600-800 yards.
Okay.
And, I don't know how far they'd go if I didn't do that.
So they'll get in there a little bit.
Yeah. Boss, he was that way when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think it's just more of their intelligence and comes with age. They learn the hunting style and they just kind of settle into it.
Yeah.
Around here, if you got a dog where I hunt, if you got a dog going 600-800 yards, he's running past squirrels. And I guess the closer hunting, you could attribute that to age, them getting better and treeing those squirrels instead of running past them.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's it like terrain-wise where you're at?
Okay, I live in basically the foothills of the Ozarks.
Okay.
Have you ever been down Kentucky into LBL?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's similar to that.
I've heard a lot about LBL, but I've never been there.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to that terrain. It's hill ground, nothing real tall.
Mm-hmm.
We got what we call the mountain across the road from the house here, and I think the elevation on it's like 680 foot. So, most people laugh here and us call that a mountain.
Yeah.
It's like that, but I can drive 30 minutes and be in the flat ground,
mm-hmm.
and I can hunt all day long, and every step I take is as flat as your kitchen table.
Yeah.
Down there where I hunt, it's 100 miles to the Mississippi River, and there's one hill between there and the Mississippi.
Nice.
But it's big timber,
mm-hmm.
Real big timber, and a lot of water.
Yeah.
When I squirrel hunt, I wear hip boots. So I used to not. I used to stay in these hills all the time, but there's a lot more game down there in that flat land. And the older I get, I like that flat walking too.
Yep.
And honestly, I think you're doing your dogs a disservice to stay up here in these hills because it's short timber. And in fact, the Skittles dogs that I had that I won the world hunt with,
Mm-hmm.
that's all I hunted was the hills when I had her before I sold her.
Okay.
That's another interesting deal I'll tell you about. But I'd won the world hunt with her, and I mean it was a full 4-round elimination hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Hunted down to the last two, and she was it. And not only did she win every cast, she was high scoring cast winner every round but one.
Okay.
She was a good little dog.
Yeah.
But I went down to Alabama and spent a week down there hunting with Tim Cosby, and that was really big timber down there. And she hadn't never been messed with and that stuff, and Tim's dogs made her look silly.
It's funny how dogs can look very different from one day to the next.
Oh yeah. And after that, I decided I'd better start hunting big timber. And you think about it, if a dog can tree a squirrel in that big timber, he can tree a squirrel anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I do most of my hunting down there now. But the Skittles dog, I'm sure you've heard of the Atomic line of fires.
I have. I was gonna say you sold her to Mike, didn't you?
Yes, I did. No. I did not sell her to Mike Croucher.
Okay. Well, then, didn't he end up with her then?
He did end up with her.
Okay.
I sold her to a man down in South Georgia named Stan Townsend. And Stan is the person that made both the crosses with Skittles and Tom.
Okay.
And then Croucher got a hold of those dogs and started the Atomic line.
Okay. I got you. Now, I remember the Skittles name, and also that's where the brindle color, I believe, came from in those dogs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
He also wound up with a couple of other dogs from me indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
They was 2 females in Booster's last litter. I kept a male out of that litter. There was a guy out around Knoxville, Tennessee, bought both the females. And somehow Croucher later on down the road found out about them dogs. Well, actually, he was coming up there and hunting with a guy.
Okay.
And he bought both those females. I found one of them, 3 or 4 years ago and tried to buy her. And he was down in North Florida, and the guy wouldn't sell her.
Gotcha.
It was the one they called Cuddy. And then the other one's just, it vanished. No trace.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. Everybody, man, you had Skittles. She was world champion. What'd you sell her for? At the time, this was when the boy was playing ball and wasn't doing much.
Yep.
I had Skittles. I had Laney. I had Annie. And I didn't need them all. And so I decided I was going to move one. And, and that's everybody thinks Skittles was the dog, because she was a world champion.
Yeah.
Now, a guy sitting there with 3 half sisters, do you think he's going to sell the best of the 3?
No.
No. Now, there was days she would put it on Laney and Annie, but day in, day out, they was going to be better than her.
Okay.
And that's why I sold Skittles. My dogs don't go back to her very much.
Okay.
There's one cross. I bred Skittles back to Booster.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dog called Hatchy Jack come out of that. And he's in several of my pedigrees, and that's about the only way Skittles shows up.
Okay.
Now I have done a couple of crosses. I may have to go in here in a minute. The flying squirrels are about to come out. I've done a couple of crosses on some Atomic dogs.
Yeah.
And I had a female straight off Adam and the Cuddy dog I mentioned a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll show up through that. That's about it. I hear them hitting the bar. There it went. Get loud here in a minute. Maybe they won't get too wound up. But she was nice, but she was funny. She had a good nose, but in this short timber hunting her like that, she was one that did want to use her eyes and ears more than her nose.
Okay.
That's what got her sent down the road.
Yeah.
They enjoyed her down there.
Good. You can't keep every good dog.
No, boy, I'd sure like to though. I've like I say, I've got 8 right now, and
we can hear quite a few.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in. This may be something new. This is kind of a cool story. I had a couple of litters of pups, and one out of Booster and Hershey, which that was one of my favorite crosses I ever made. Then I had a gyp called BB. I had a litter out of him and her. Well, a couple of guys came and they bought a pup out of each litter, and went on. I was having a hunt here the next year. They come to the hunt, and they caught wind that I had another litter out of Booster and Hershey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they wanted to know if they could trade the dog out of BB back, because they really liked that Booster and Hershey pup.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I'll do that. And got that dog back. He wouldn't do anything. I mean, he wouldn't do nothing. And I kept him here for a while. And there's an old man lives across the pasture over here. Rough old man. He was a retired merchant marine. And kind of funny. He is so old and ornery and rough. He was married. His wife lived in New Orleans, and he lived up here. And they just go see each other every now and then. And but anyway, he always kept some kind of old dog around. Had an old blue tick hound. And I heard it died. I seen him up at the store one day at dinner. Asking us, Mr. Sawyer, do you like a dog? Of course, he cussed every breath, and I won't repeat what he said, but it all turned out, yeah, he wanted the dog. And I took that dog over and gave it to him. And I was done with him.
Mm-hmm.
It rocked on, and it'd been a year or so. And it got to where every time I'd have something come in heat here, he'd show up. I'd either call Mr. Sawyer and he'd come get him, or I'd load him up and haul him back over and take him home. And I was out here one day, heard a dog tree out here by the house. And this will tie back into Skittles too. It was that dog.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't recognize it. I walked up there and there he was, locked up on a squirrel. I said, well, I'll be darned. And he hung around here, and I didn't know it. That joker, he got in the pen and bred Skittles. When she won that world hunt, she was 3 weeks from having puppies.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, I called Mr. Sawyer. And I said, Mr. Sawyer, your dog's is back over here. He went to cussing. And when it was all done and said, he give me the dog back. He said, he won't stay at home. He said, you keep him. You sure? Yeah, you keep him. He said, I don't want him. Okay. Well, he just run around here treeing all the time. And Tim Cosby called me. It hadn't been 3 or 4 weeks. He said, you got a dog you'd sell? I said, yeah, I got one I'll sell. He said, well, I got a guy down here. He's looking. He said, I'm going to tell him. And he said, all right. And he said, now, when he comes up there, he said he does a TV show down here. His name was Archie Phillips. It was Outdoors with Archie Phillips was the show.
Okay.
And he said he's probably going to want to film the hunt and everything. He said, but he'll come there and check the dog out. Sure enough, he called me. I told him what I wanted for the dog, which I messed up. I priced him at $1,500. I should have hunted the dog. He'd have paid $3,000 easy for him. He was that nice.
Yeah.
But he came up and we spent one evening and all the next morning filming Boots and Skittles hunting, and he bought the dog and went back to Alabama.
Nice.
Oh, that's pretty wild. That old dog
Mm-hmm.
showed back up, and Mr. Sawyer, he was mad at him, done, didn't want him back.
Yep.
But I learned a lesson on that one too. Before you price a dog, you better hunt it.
Yeah. Know what you got.
Yeah, I had way more dog than what I thought I had. He made several shows with that dog before it was over with.
That's pretty cool. So your dogs are famous.
I don't know if they're famous, but like I say, as long as I'm happy with them, I don't care.
Yep.
And
No, that's what matters. The one thing I did want to ask you about was you won American Train Feist Association Breeder of the Year.
yeah,
Like, I don't know how do you win that, and what do you contribute to your success and being able to win that?
okay. What I contribute to is two things: the dog and the good friends I've got hunting dogs. Because the way you get to be Breeder of the Year, and by the way, this is my third year in a row now.
Oh wow!
First off, you've got to have more than one dog entered in a hunt that you're listed as the breeder on.
Mm-hmm.
Because every set of ATFA papers list a breeder.
Yeah.
So you got to have more than one dog. And as these dogs are entered in the hunts, you get breeder points just like you get champion points
Okay.
for placing. And at the end of the season, whoever's got the most breeder points is Breeder of the Year.
Gotcha.
So that's how that comes to be. And the same as Dog of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Your whatever championship points you get, that goes to Dog of the Year.
Gotcha.
Last year, Moonpie was Dog of the Year. Banjo had a shot at it this year, and I couldn't wait to have a puppy out of her and Toby, and I bred her, and she missed a couple of hunts. So she was in the running. Even missing hunts, she placed 5th or 6th overall Dog of the Year points, something like that. But yeah, I've got James Day, Chad West, Tony Key, Owen Brayson. I'm forgetting somebody. Cody Wise. I've got several hunting these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, we don't chase the money hunts.
Yeah.
We stay with the ATFA stuff. There's a lot of traveling involved in ATFA.
Yeah. Just looking here at Moonpie's accomplishments, you got multiple Arkansas regional hunts. You got Kentucky, Mississippi. I think I read somewhere that a Missouri hunt was her first hunt. She won.
I think she was like 13 months old.
Yeah.
That wasn't planned, but it happened. But she's had quite a career with ATFA. But now she's done. Once they make Grand Squirrel champion, there's nothing left for them.
Okay.
So done, and she is also an NKC Squirrel champion.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
I don't pursue that much. Way the ATFA hunts are, we've got one hunt a month, starting in October, going through March.
Okay.
And especially with the traveling involved in it, that's enough for me. I like to hunt.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I wouldn't do the ATFA stuff, but that bunch that does the traveling and makes all the hunts, they're such a ball to be around.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're all family now, and we just go to see each other.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to win, but nobody gets too bent out of shape if they don't.
That's always good.
It's stuff goes on there that you don't see anywhere else. We'll have our competition hunt. It'll go all day Saturday, and Saturday night after it's over with, we'll all be at a restaurant somewhere with the tables pulled together, one big long line, all of us eating together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a pretty big deal to me right there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, we're all kind of the point we don't take the dogs that serious. I mean, we do, but we don't.
Yeah.
Have you stumbled across anything about Booster Fest?
I have not.
Okay.
What is Booster Fest?
A big buddy hunt.
Okay.
It started out, I don't know, about 5 years ago, 6 maybe now. Me and James Day. And James Day, that's a funny deal too. He lives in North Georgia, and probably as good a friend as I've got. Just, I mean, a super guy.
Mm-hmm.
And with me living all the way out here and him living in North Georgia, I probably hunt with him about as much as I do anybody. He makes a trip out here every year for a week or so, and that's what started Booster Fest.
Okay.
But it has grown. Now, it sounds like it, but you don't have to have a booster dog to get an invite. But I invite a bunch of people just to hang out for a week. I rent a big duck lodge down there where I hunt.
Okay.
And big 2-story lodge, 2 kitchens, 4 bathrooms, pool table, everything. And last year I had 25 people from 7 different states.
That's awesome.
And, it's not, it wasn't a competition up until this point. We're actually moving the Arkansas ATFA hunt up there to it for the first Saturday of Booster Fest.
Mm-hmm.
But we we hang out, we hunt, do a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
We got some old boys from Louisiana comes up like to cook that Cajun food. And we eat real well. Of course, there's always a few messes of squirrels cooked.
There you go.
I think this year we get there on a Friday. We do it the first weekend of December because that's the break during duck season here in Arkansas.
Okay.
And everybody gets here on Friday afternoon. And I don't remember what we did last year, but this past winter, but the winter before, I had a count on it because I had to come back home for a little bit that Monday at noon. And by that Monday at noon, we'd killed over 300 squirrels.
Holy smokes.
There's a lot of squirrels down there. And anybody that comes, they're going to come back next year unless they've got some kind of emergency. I mean, nobody ever came and said, I ain't going back to that.
Yeah.
So, but that's that's what I enjoy right there.
Yep.
Just get together, and there's enough people you can hunt with somebody different every time you go to the woods.
Yeah.
See different dogs. And of course, you got the Georgia crew. This crew comes out of Mississippi,
mm-hmm.
East Tennessee, Missouri, Louisiana, Alabama, and then Arkansas. Yeah, it's 7 states.
That's awesome.
You get a hankering to come down here and go hunting, it'd be a good trip.
Sounds like it.
There's not any. I don't know of anything going on around like it. And I know them Tennessee boys. They always went to LBL on that weekend. And they broke down and come last year, and they said, "Oh, we ain't going back to LBL." What else you got on questions?
I think that's about it.
You got me started. So
you were afraid you weren't going to have anything to say.
I was. I hope it was interesting enough for you to do with it.
It definitely was.
Ain't nothing fancy. Just got my dogs and like them. So
yep.
That's why everybody ought to be.
Exactly.
I feel sorry for people that aren't happy with their dogs.
Now, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time and sitting down with me.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I say, anytime you want to call and just visit, feel free.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
All right.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.